The sun was merciless that afternoon. Its golden rays burned down on the cracked concrete of the abandoned train tracks, glinting off shards of glass scattered across the platform. Ayla's hands were rough and bleeding, her small basket of recyclables bouncing against her hip as she hurried along the dusty path, trying to avoid the piercing gaze of the few passersby. She had learned early in life that no one looked out for a poor girl. Survival meant moving fast, keeping your head down, and hoping luck didn't run out today. But luck had already run out. A sudden glint caught her eye, just at the edge of the tracks. At first, she thought it was a piece of metal, discarded by some careless worker. But as she drew closer, her heart twisted with a terror she had never known. A young man lay sprawled across the rails, his crisp white shirt stained with dust and sweat. His dark hair was matted to his forehead, and his breathing, it was shallow, uneven, like he was slipping through life without even knowing. One shoe was twisted under him, the other half off, exposing pale, trembling toes. His hand twitched unnaturally, but he didn't wake. Ayla froze. The wind felt heavier suddenly, carrying the distant sound of a train horn that made her stomach churn. No, no, no. Her voice cracked as she whispered to herself, crouching beside him. She shook his shoulder gently. Hey, wake up, please. Nothing. Panic clawed at her chest. She tried again, harder this time, shaking his arm with all her strength. Still nothing. Tears blurred her vision. Oh God, please. Don't let him be gone. She searched his pockets desperately, hoping for some clue. A wallet. A phone. Anything. Her fingers found a phone, cracked and scratched, lying just inside his jacket. She flipped it open, praying. Contacts flashed across the screen. One name glowed in bold letters at the top. Papa. Her hand trembled violently as she tapped it. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice like steel, sharp and commanding, sliced through the phone. Hello? Ayla's heart pounded so loudly she thought he could hear it on the other end. Sir, your son. He passed out, near the train tracks, and he won't wake up. The line went silent. Too long. She could almost hear the deathly calm in the other side of the phone. And then came a low, dangerous growl. If this is a joke, you won't live to hear my next breath. Ayla swallowed hard, her throat dry. I'm not joking. I found him. Please. You have to come. Her words seemed to pierce the steel in the voice. It softened, just slightly, enough that a thread of urgency replaced the anger. Where? She gave the location, her hand shaking so violently she could barely hold the phone. She glanced at the boy again. His eyes were closed, pale. His chest rose and fell so faintly it barely moved. She pressed her ear closer, feeling the heartbeat that was so weak it made her stomach twist. She wanted to scream. She wanted someone, anyone, to help. But there was no one. Just the hot wind, the distant hum of the city, and the relentless, deafening thrum of the approaching train. Ayla tried to lift him, her small frame struggling under his weight. Panic rose in her throat, making her gasp for air. Come on. You can do this. Just a few steps. He was heavier than she imagined. Every inch of him burned against her palms. His head lolled to the side, hitting the gravel. A sharp pain shot through her fingers. She pressed down to steady him. Another train horn. Closer this time. Her eyes snapped to the horizon. The sun glinted off steel rails in the distance. The wind picked up, carrying a metallic screech of brakes and wheels. Her heart stopped. No, 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 not like this. Suddenly, movement, strong, deliberate. A shadow fell over them. Ayla froze. She couldn't see the face yet, but the aura was unmistakable. Power! Danger. The kind of presence that made the air itself tremble. Step back. A voice said. Calm, commanding, yet laced with an undercurrent of fear. Ayla hesitated, then looked up. It was him. The man on the phone. The voice. The mafia boss. Tall. Black suit. Dark sunglasses despite the glaring sunlight. His eyes. She couldn't see them, but she felt their intensity, burning through her. His hand rested lightly on the holster at his hip, but his focus wasn't on her. He was on the boy. Ayla felt herself trembling uncontrollably. I tried to move him, sir," she stammered. He didn't respond at first. He lifted the boy in one fluid motion, as if he weighed nothing at all, cradling him like a fragile bird. His face, usually carved from stone, softened. Fear, panic. She had never seen a man like that afraid of anything, yet now she realized that his fear was raw, human, and it terrified her more than his reputation ever could. What happened? His voice cracked, just barely. Ayla shook her head. I, I don't know. I just, I found him here. He, he wouldn't wake up. He looked down at his son, gently shaking him. Leo, wake up. Come on. Please. The boy stirred slightly, letting out a faint, strangled groan. But it wasn't enough. His eyes remained closed. Ayla stepped back, her throat dry, her hands trembling. The truth hit her like a blow. She had stumbled into something far bigger than herself. The danger wasn't just the train, or even the boy lying unconscious. It was everything else, the shadows behind the boss's calm. Whoever had caused this, they were still out there. She noticed something glinting on his wrist. A tiny mark, almost invisible. A puncture. Her stomach sank. Poison. Ayla's breath caught in her throat. He's not just hurt. Someone tried to kill him. The boss's eyes, finally meeting hers, burned with a mix of fury and panic. He turned, scanning the horizon, as if the sunlit day itself could hide enemies. And then, in a voice low and deadly, he muttered, "Tell me you didn't see anyone." Ayla shook her head violently. "No, I swear, I didn't see anyone." His gaze softened for a split second before hardening again. He lifted Leo, cradling him tightly, and his voice dropped to a whisper, more to himself than anyone else. "Stay with me, Leo. Don't leave me now." The distant hum of the approaching train grew louder, echoing against the metal rails like a ticking clock counting down to disaster. Ayla's hands clutched her basket, knuckles white. Her heart thudded violently. For the first time, she realized how fragile life was, and how terrifying it was to hold someone else's life in your hands, even unknowingly. And then, a final, faint movement from Leo. A twitch. A shudder. Ayla's eyes widened. Her heart leapt. "He's moving," she whispered. But the movement was small, almost imperceptible. His eyes remained closed, and his lips, trembling, barely formed a word. "Run!" Ayla froze, the word echoing in her mind. The sun burned down, the rails stretched endlessly, and the world seemed to tilt on a knife's edge. The danger was no longer just immediate. It was imminent, invisible, and waiting. The boss's jaw tightened. His eyes scanned every shadow. He looked at her, and though no words were spoken, Ayla understood. Nothing would ever be the same again. The ground beneath them vibrated slightly, a reminder that time was running out. The next chapter of this nightmare was about to begin, and Ayla was standing in its very center, powerless but unwilling to step away. The sun beat mercilessly on the tracks, but now the warmth felt heavy, almost suffocating. Ayla's arms ached from trying to lift Leo, her small hands slick with sweat and dust. The boy's chest barely rose and fell, and each shallow breath sent a spike of panic straight through her chest. Why won't he wake up? Why is this happening? A sudden roar cut through the midday heat, the unmistakable sound of a car engine, low and powerful, approaching fast. Ayla's head whipped toward the source. Dust spiraled in the air, glinting like tiny golden sparks under the sun. She could feel the car's weight in the vibrations under her feet before she even saw it. And then it stopped. A sleek black sedan, tinted windows reflecting the blinding daylight, idled a few meters away. The engine purred like a wild animal ready to strike. The driver's door opened, and a figure stepped out, tall, commanding, every movement precise and deliberate. It was him. Alessandro Moretti, the mafia boss whose name whispered fear through every corner of the city. The man who could destroy empires with a flick of his wrist, now standing in the scorching sunlight, his eyes fixed on his son. Ayla froze, heart hammering. She had seen him on the news, in pictures, in whispered rumors told in frightened bars. But now, seeing him in person, not as a myth, not as a story, but as a man holding his son's life in the balance, it was terrifying. He didn't look at her. He didn't speak to her. Every ounce of his attention was on Leo. And yet, Ayla could feel the weight of his presence, an invisible force pressing down, demanding obedience, respect, and absolute attention. Ayla stammered, "Sir, I found him here. He, he won't wake up." He knelt without a word, lifting Leo with a strength that seemed impossible. The boy's body was limp in his arms, but Alessandro's eyes never wavered. They burned, scanning every inch of him for signs of life. "Leo, wake up, please. Don't do this to me," he whispered, voice breaking, so low that even the breeze seemed to carry it. Ayla stepped closer cautiously, unsure if she was stepping into danger or witnessing something sacred. The man whose name inspired terror was now terrified. His hands shook ever so slightly, cradling his son as if the boy weighed nothing, yet everything, all at once. Her throat tightened. "I've never seen fear like that. Not in a man who could kill without blinking. Did anyone see you?" Alessandro's voice cut through the air, sharp and demanding. But it wasn't the rage of a mafia boss. It was raw panic, the kind that comes when the world you control suddenly slips through your fingers. "And no, sir. I, I swear," Ayla said, voice quivering. "I didn't see anyone. I just, I just found him here." He nodded slowly, not taking his eyes off Leo. "Good. Stay there." Ayla's eyes followed him, noticing the small, almost imperceptible twitch in the boy's wrist. A puncture mark. Poison. Her heart dropped. Whoever had done this had planned it carefully. And if Leo was poisoned, then every second counted. Alessandro's eyes scanned the horizon, every shadow under the glaring sun suddenly seeming like a threat. The heat, the dust, even the humming of distant trains felt alive with danger. He lifted Leo slightly, checking for responsiveness. A faint groan escaped the boy's lips, but his eyes remained closed. Ayla felt tears welling in her eyes. She didn't know the boy, didn't know the man, but the helplessness was unbearable. She wanted to scream at the injustice of it all, to demand that the world stop for a moment and fix this. But she only stood frozen, watching. "Who did this to you, Leo?" Alessandro murmured, more to himself than anyone else. His voice was tight with emotion, the kind of fear a father feels when faced with the impossible. Ayla hesitated, then swallowed her fear. "Sir, I think he, he's poisoned. See his wrist?" She pointed, voice shaking. Alessandro's gaze dropped to the mark. His jaw tightened. Anger replaced the panic, but the fear remained, the primal, unshakable fear that a parent feels when their child's life hangs by a thread. He muttered a single word under his breath. "Traitors." Ayla didn't understand, but she didn't need to. The word carried the weight of countless secrets, betrayals, and danger that she couldn't even begin to imagine. Suddenly, the distant sound of tires squealing caught her attention. Another car, maybe more. The city always felt far away, but danger had a way of catching up even on deserted tracks. Alessandro's eyes flicked toward the sound, his body tensed, every muscle, every fiber of him ready. He didn't speak, he just scanned the horizon, moving instinctively. The world around them blurred, sunlight striking dust, creating a shimmering heat haze. But his focus was razor sharp, centered on protecting his son. Ayla noticed something strange. The way he carried Leo wasn't just protective. It was desperate. He whispered to the boy, words she couldn't fully hear, but each one seemed like a lifeline, a plea for survival. "Please stay with me, don't leave me, not now." The boy twitched again, a weak shiver, a flutter of life. But it wasn't enough. His eyes still remained closed. Ayla swallowed hard, feeling her own panic rise. "I have to do something. I can't just watch. Sir, I can help. I can stay with him, do something." She stammered, voice barely audible over the pounding of her own heart. Alessandro turned his gaze on her for the first time. The sunglasses reflected the sunlight, hiding the depth of his emotion, but she could see it in the tilt of his head. the faint tightening of his jaw. He was measuring her, weighing her presence, deciding if she was a threat or a lifeline. "Stay close," he said finally, almost gruffly. "But don't touch him. One wrong move, and this is over." Ayla nodded, feeling the weight of those words press down on her. She was terrified of him, of the world around them, of the faint heartbeat she was trying to follow. But more than that, she was terrified of losing him, the boy whose life had landed in her hands by accident. The distant roar of the city, the clatter of the tracks, even the wind through the dust-laden air seemed to fade into the background. There was only Leo, lying limp, and the man who had just entered her world like a storm. And then, a sudden realization struck her. This wasn't just an accident. Poison wasn't random. The careful timing, the deliberate nature of it. Someone wanted Leo dead. Her eyes darted to the horizon again, scanning shadows, dust clouds, anything that might signal danger. Who would do this? And why? Alessandro lifted Leo, cradling him tightly against his chest. His hands were steady now, but his eyes betrayed everything: fear, anger, desperation, and a deep, unspoken sorrow. He looked down at Ayla and whispered, almost more to himself than her, "If you're telling the truth, you may have just saved his life." Ayla's stomach tightened. She felt exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely important. She had never wanted to be part of someone else's story, and yet here she was, standing in the glaring sun, caught between life and death, powerless yet indispensable. Then a sudden movement, a flash of light from the tracks, a glint of something metallic in the distance. Ayla's eyes widened. She squinted. "Sir, look!" she shouted, pointing. Alessandro's head snapped toward the glint, eyes narrowing. His jaw hardened. Whatever it was, he recognized it. Recognition spread across his face like a shadow, something dangerous, something deadly, approaching fast. Ayla's breath caught. She didn't understand, but she could feel the weight of it in her bones. Danger was closer than she thought, closer than the sunlight, closer than the tracks, closer than the boy in his arms. And in that moment, everything changed. The heat, the dust, the glaring sun, it all felt alive with threat, and Ayla knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning. The city streets blurred past as Alessandro's black sedan tore through the afternoon sun. Dust rose in waves behind them, catching the light like golden fire. Ayla gripped the edge of her seat, holding Leo's fragile body in her lap. His head rested against her shoulder, skin pale, lips trembling. Every shallow breath he took made her stomach twist. "Please, please, stay with us." She prayed silently, her hands shaking. Alessandro's eyes were fixed on the road ahead, sharp and calculating, but every so often they flicked toward Leo. Each glance was heavy with fear, a raw, unfiltered panic that even his power couldn't hide. He was used to controlling everything around him: money, men, the city itself. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for the fragility of his son's life in the back seat, and the weight of a stranger's presence in the same car. Ayla stole a glance at him. The sunglasses hid his eyes, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his hand as he gripped the steering wheel. She realized, in that moment, that fear didn't discriminate. Even the most dangerous men could crumble when someone they loved was in danger. Leo stirred faintly, a low, strangled sound escaping his lips. "Run," he whispered again, barely audible. The word made Ayla's heart pound. She had no idea what it meant. Who was he warning? Who had tried to kill him? Alessandro's voice broke the tense silence, cold and commanding. "Ayla, listen to me. Stay calm. Do exactly as I say, and no one gets hurt." Ayla nodded, swallowing hard. I will. I don't understand. Who? Why?" Alessandro's hands tightened around the wheel. "You'll understand soon enough. Right now, focus on him." Ayla pressed her hands against Leo's chest, feeling the faint flutter of life. Her fingers trembled, but she refused to let go. "Hold on, Leo. Just hold on." Suddenly, a flash of black in her peripheral vision made her gasp. A vehicle, moving fast, tailing them. Not far behind. She pointed. Sir, someone's following us. Alessandro's jaw clenched. I know. His voice was steady, but the slight edge betrayed urgency. They're fast, but we are faster. Ayla's mind raced. Who were they? Who would dare attack the son of Alessandro Moretti in broad daylight? And why hadn't they tried to strike before? Every second felt like a countdown to disaster. Leo's eyes fluttered weakly, almost opening, but his voice was hoarse and trembling. They want me dead. Not you, her. Ayla froze. Her, her hands tightened instinctively around his shirt. They're after me too? Alessandro's eyes flicked to her, a storm of fury and disbelief behind the dark lens. He didn't speak for a long moment, but the tension in the car was suffocating. His mind was already calculating who had the audacity to attack his son in the heart of the city. And now, with Ayla involved, the stakes had multiplied. The sedan swerved slightly as Alessandro avoided a pothole. The following car gained a little distance, then slowed, as if watching, calculating their next move. Ayla's heart raced uncontrollably. Every second was a lifetime. Tell me exactly what you saw, Alessandro demanded. I was collecting recyclables near the train tracks, and then I saw him. Ayla's voice quivered. He was lying there, unconscious. His wrist. I think he was poisoned. That's all I know, sir. Please. I didn't see anyone else. Alessandro didn't respond immediately. He just tightened his grip on the steering wheel, jaw working. Finally, he muttered under his breath, more to himself than to Ayla. They're clever, too clever. Ayla looked at Leo. His pale face, damp with sweat, reflected the sunlight that poured through the window. She pressed her hand to his forehead. His body shivered violently. Stay with me, she whispered, panic rising. Alessandro glanced at her from the corner of his eye. You've done well just by finding him. Don't make mistakes now. Mistakes cost lives, sometimes more than one. The following car took a turn, cutting through a side street in an attempt to flank them. Alessandro's pulse quickened, but his movements remained precise, controlled. Every decision calculated to keep them alive. Ayla's mind couldn't stop racing. They know he's weak. They know he's alone. Almost. They're waiting for him to slip away. But why now? Why here? Then, a sudden jolt. The car behind fired a shot. Glass shattered in the rearview mirror. Ayla screamed, instinctively shielding Leo. The bullet embedded itself in the leather seat, mere inches from their heads. Alessandro swerved sharply, tires screeching. He growled, a low, dangerous sound, and the sedan leapt forward with unmatched speed. Stay down, he barked. Ayla pressed herself against the floor, trembling. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat, pounding with fear. Leo's shallow breaths were ragged, each one a reminder of how fragile life truly was. A moment of stillness followed, the deafening silence of anticipation. And then the following car slowed again, pulling back just enough to stay in visual range. Whoever they were watching, waiting, patient. Alessandro's hands tightened on the wheel. They want us to panic, he muttered. They think we'll make a mistake. Ayla's voice barely rose above a whisper. But why would they want your son dead? Why target him? Alessandro didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the road, scanning every shadow, every reflective surface. But the briefest flicker of his gaze toward Ayla told her one thing. He was protecting her now too. Her life was tied to his son's survival, and that meant she was caught in a storm far bigger than anything she had ever imagined. Leo stirred slightly, moaning in pain. Ayla pressed her hand against his chest again, her own tears mingling with sweat. Stay with me just a little longer, she pleaded. Alessandro's voice was sharp, almost a hiss. They aren't done yet. Whoever sent them. They want answers, and they'll stop at nothing to get them. Ayla's stomach turned. Every instinct screamed at her to run, hide, do something, anything, but she had nowhere to go. They were surrounded by danger, moving through a city that felt suddenly foreign, hostile, and alive with threats. The sedan turned into a narrow alley, dust and sunlight mingling in the tight space. Alessandro slowed, scanning for escape routes, but the pursuing car followed like a shadow. Every second, every heartbeat, brought them closer to confrontation. Alia pressed herself closer to Leo, who groaned faintly, barely conscious. His lips parted slightly as if trying to speak, but no words came out. She understood. He was weak, poisoned, vulnerable. And yet, he had survived this long. The alley opened into a quiet street, deserted and empty under the harsh sunlight. Alessandro's eyes flicked to every window, every corner. "They're watching," he muttered. "And they're waiting for us to make the next mistake." Ayla's hand shook, but she held Leo tighter. "We can't fail. Not now. Not like this." Then, a shadow moved in the distance, the glint of a weapon catching the sunlight. Ayla froze, her heart leaping into her throat. Alessandro's head snapped toward the shadow, eyes narrowing. His body tensed. Every instinct screamed danger. Alia's mind raced. "We're not safe yet. Not even close. Someone wants him dead." And now, somehow, they know she's involved too. The tension was unbearable, the city alive with threat, and Ayla realized that their fight for survival had only just begun. The abandoned construction site was silent, save for the faint hum of distant traffic and the occasional creak of metal swaying in the wind. Dust hung in the sunbeams, drifting lazily through broken windows and open beams. It was a perfect place to hide, and yet, every shadow seemed alive with threat. Ayla crouched behind a crumbling concrete wall, Leo's frail body still resting in her lap. His shallow breathing rattled in the quiet air, each inhale a fragile thread keeping him alive. She pressed her hand to his chest, willing his heart to beat stronger, to fight against whatever poison had been coursing through his veins. Alessandro stood a few meters away, surveying the perimeter with the careful precision of a predator. Every muscle in his body was tense, every sense alert. Despite the sun blazing down, sweat beaded on his forehead, and his jaw was tight. One false move, 1 second of inattention, and it could all be over. "Sir," Ayla whispered, her voice trembling, "we're safe. For now. But I think there's more. Something he's hiding." Alessandro's head snapped toward her, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Ayla hesitated, glancing at Leo. His fingers twitched faintly, as if reacting to some unspoken command. Then, with a soft groan, something fell from his jacket pocket, a folded piece of paper. Her heart skipped. "Sir, look," she whispered, reaching for it cautiously. Alessandro moved faster than she expected. In one fluid motion, he scooped it up and unfolded it. His eyes scanned the contents. A list! Names, dates, transactions. Every line told a story of betrayal, of secrets meant to remain hidden. Ayla's breath caught. "What? What is it?" she asked, voice barely audible. Alessandro didn't answer immediately. His face went pale, and his normally sharp eyes widened in disbelief. His hands trembled slightly as he refolded the paper, holding it tightly against his chest. This is why someone tried to kill him," he finally muttered. His voice was low, almost a growl. "Leo, my son, he found out something. Something dangerous. Something. Inside my own organization." Ayla's mind raced. Inside his own organization? That means betrayal, treachery. And if they try to kill him once, they'll try again. Leo stirred slightly, moaning faintly. Ayla brushed a strand of sweat-soaked hair from his forehead. "You have to fight," she whispered. "You have to stay with us." Alessandro's eyes flicked toward Leo, a storm of fury and fear colliding in his gaze. "He did this to protect me," he said, voice thick with emotion. "He knew what would happen if I found out. And still, he risked his life." Ayla swallowed hard. The truth hit her like a hammer. This wasn't just a random attack. It wasn't luck or chance. Leo had uncovered a secret that could destroy his father, perhaps the whole empire. And in trying to protect his father, someone had tried to end his life. The air around them was thick with tension. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ayla's fingers trembled as she held Leo closer. She looked to Alessandro, whose gaze had grown distant, calculating. He was already plotting, already planning retribution, but the weight of betrayal weighed heavily on him. Who are they? Ayla asked softly. Who would do this? Alessandro's jaw tightened. People I trusted. People I thought were loyal. They want my son dead. And anyone who helps him is a target. That includes you, Ayla. Her stomach dropped. Me? Why would they care about me? She glanced down at Leo again. His hand twitched in hers, as if he was trying to communicate something she couldn't understand. Alessandro crouched next to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. They'll come for us, he said, voice low but steady. Sooner than you think. We have to move now. But first, we need to know what he knows, and how much they know. Ayla nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. Every shadow in the sunlit construction site now seemed alive with threat. She pressed herself closer to Leo, who groaned softly, his voice hoarse. Don't let them find me, he whispered, each word barely audible. Promise you protect her. Ayla's hands shook violently. I promise. I swear I'll protect her. Him, she corrected herself, voice breaking. Alessandro's eyes darkened. He's telling the truth, he muttered. They'll stop at nothing. And now, they know someone outside our walls is involved. That makes you a liability and a target. Ayla felt her stomach churn. Fear clawed at her chest, sharp and relentless. She had never been part of a world like this, a world of betrayal, power, and death lurking behind every shadow. But now, she was inside it. Her life, and the boys, depended on her choices. The faintest sound made her freeze, the scrape of metal, a distant whistle of air. Somewhere outside, beyond the broken walls and beams, movement stirred. Eyes were watching, always watching. Alessandro's hands moved instinctively, reaching for a concealed weapon at his side. His body was a coil of controlled tension, every muscle ready, every sense alert. He didn't speak, but Ayla understood. The enemy was near. Leo stirred again, weakly trying to sit up. His voice was barely a whisper. Don't let him see. Alessandro looked down, eyes narrowing. See what? Leo's lips parted slightly, trembling. The list. Ayla's eyes widened. She realized that whatever was on that paper, the secret he had discovered, was dangerous enough that just being in its presence could get them all killed. Alessandro clenched his jaw, eyes scanning the sunlit site for any sign of movement. We have to leave, he said finally. Now. Ayla nodded, fear and determination warring inside her. She pressed Leo closer, whispering, We're getting you out of here. Alive. But the construction site seemed to close in around them. Shadows stretched unnaturally in the sunlight, and every distant sound made her flinch. They were not safe. Not yet. Not by a long shot. And then, from the corner of her eye, Ayla noticed it, a faint movement, a shadow shifting among the beams. Someone was approaching, someone who knew exactly where they were. Her breath caught. Alessandro's hand tightened on his weapon. The tension was unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity, the threat closing in, drawing them toward a confrontation they could not avoid. Ayla looked at Leo's pale face, then at Alessandro, and whispered, They're here. Alessandro's eyes burned with fury and fear. Good, he muttered. Let them come. The construction site was quiet for a heartbeat. And then everything changed. The construction site was a battlefield of shadows and sunlight. Dust swirled in sharp beams, catching on rusted metal and broken concrete. Every sound echoed, a distant car horn, a loose plank shifting, the faint scuff of a shoe on gravel. Ayla's heart raced so fast it felt like it could burst from her chest. Leo's frail body rested in her arms. His skin was damp with sweat, his breathing shallow and uneven. Each rise and fall of his chest sent shivers down her spine. She pressed her hand against him, whispering, Stay with me. Please just a little longer. Alessandro stood slightly ahead, eyes scanning the shadows, every muscle in his body taut with anticipation. The betrayal he had uncovered weighed heavily on him. But right now, there was only one priority: keeping his son alive. A shadow flickered at the edge of the sunlit beams. Ayla stiffened. Her hands tightened around Leo. Her voice trembled. "They're here." Alessandro's jaw clenched, eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. He whispered, "Good. Let them come." His words were a warning, a promise of what would happen to anyone who dared harm his son. Then, as if on cue, a black SUV emerged from the dust, moving cautiously but with intent. Gunmen, trained and precise, stepped out, weapons ready. The tension was electric, thick enough to cut with a knife. Ayla's breath caught. She looked down at Leo. "Stay still, please," she whispered. "You can't, not yet." Alessandro's voice was low, deadly, and calm, but every word carried the weight of a storm. "Ayla, behind me. Keep him safe." She nodded, pressing herself against a concrete pillar, shielding Leo as best she could. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she stayed. Her hands shook, but she refused to let go of the boy whose life had become hers to protect. The gunmen advanced. A tense standoff ensued, sunlight reflecting off their weapons, shadows shifting unnaturally on broken walls. Alessandro's eyes were sharp, calculating. He didn't flinch, but his every movement was deliberate, each step measured to keep them all alive. Then a sudden sound, a gunshot. Glass shattered nearby, sending shards skittering across the ground. Ayla screamed instinctively, hugging Leo tighter. Her heart pounded. Alessandro reacted instantly, moving with impossible speed. He grabbed a gun from his holster, returning fire with precision. The attackers staggered, but the fight was far from over. Every second, every heartbeat felt like a lifetime. Ayla's mind raced. They're trying to finish what they started. To kill him. To kill him in front of me. Her fingers trembled against Leo's chest. "Stay alive, just stay alive." Leo moaned faintly, voice weak and hoarse. "Don't let her then." Ayla's tears fell freely now. She pressed a hand against his chest. "I won't let them. I swear. You're going to live. You have to." Alessandro moved between them and the attackers. Every shot he fired precise, calculated. But then, a man broke through the debris, charging toward them, his weapon aimed directly at Leo. Time slowed. Ayla froze, heart in her throat. Alessandro's voice cut through the chaos, a roar that shook the dust around them. "No." In a single motion, he leapt, intercepting the attacker, knocking him off balance. Another gunshot rang out, but Alessandro's body moved like a shadow, unstoppable, protecting the boy at all costs. Ayla pressed herself closer to Leo, holding him against her chest. "It's okay. You're safe now. Stay with me," she whispered, her tears soaking his damp hair. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Gunfire echoed, dust swirled in the sunlight, but Leo's faint breathing grew steadier, more rhythmic. Slowly, his eyes flickered open. Ayla gasped. "Leo, you're awake." He blinked, voice weak, but audible. "Papa." Alessandro's eyes softened for the first time in days. The deadly mask of the Mafia boss fell away, revealing only a father desperate for his son. He rushed forward, cradling Leo gently. "I'm here. I'm here. Don't leave me." Leo's lips trembled, a faint smile touching his face. "I wanted to protect you." Alessandro's hand shook as he held him closer. "You've already done more than I could ever ask." "My son." Alia let out a shaky breath, tears streaming down her face. Relief, fear, and exhaustion collided inside her. She looked at Alessandro, seeing not the feared Mafia boss she had imagined, but a man broken, relieved, and fiercely protective of his son. But the moment of peace was fragile. A faint movement in the shadows reminded her that danger had not disappeared. Someone was still out there, watching, waiting. Alessandro's eyes flicked to the distance, scanning every corner. He knew that while Leo was safe for now, the threat was far from gone. The betrayal within his organization, the people who wanted his son dead, they had not been defeated. He looked at Ayla, voice low but firm. "From today you are under my protection. Whoever tried to kill my son will now come after you." Ayla's eyes widened. Fear surged through her, but she nodded. She understood. Her life was now bound to this dangerous world, tied to the boy and the man whose power could protect her, or destroy anyone who threatened them. Leo shifted slightly, still weak but alive, his hand clutching Alessandro's sleeve. The father and son shared a moment of silent understanding. Words weren't needed. The bond between them, tested by danger and betrayal, was unbreakable. The sound of approaching sirens broke the tension. Help was finally on the way. Medics arrived, rushing to stabilize Leo and assess his condition. Ayla stayed close, never letting go, whispering encouragement, tears mingling with relief. Alessandro's eyes never left Leo. He was exhausted, bleeding from minor injuries, and his mind raced with vengeance and protection. He knew the war wasn't over, that enemies still lurked, and that the secret Leo had discovered could ignite another storm. But for now, his son was alive, and that was enough. Alia exhaled shakily, feeling the weight of fear lift slightly. She had been terrified moments ago, believing she might lose him forever. But now, as she watched the father and son, she understood the cost of survival, the price of loyalty, and the depth of courage. Alessandro turned to her, a rare softness in his gaze. "You did well, more than you know. If you hadn't been there, he wouldn't have survived." Ayla shook her head, overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. I just did what anyone would do." He studied her, a faint smile forming despite the danger still lingering around them. "No, not anyone. You risked your life, and now you're part of this world. Whether you like it or not, your choices matter." Leo's hand twitched, reaching weakly for Ayla's. She took it, holding it gently. He looked at her with gratitude, eyes still weak but alive, and whispered, "Thank you." The ambulance doors closed, the sirens growing louder, but the shadows of the construction site remained. Alessandro knew the enemies were still out there, plotting, waiting for the next moment. But for now, the choice had been made, life over death, protection over fear. And in that moment, Ayla realized something profound. She was no longer just a bystander in a dangerous world. She was a witness, a protector, and part of a story that had only just begun. The sun blazed down on the construction site, casting long, golden shadows over the trio. The city felt alive with threat, yet filled with a fragile, precious victory. They had survived, for now, and though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Choices mattered, courage was rewarded, and even in the darkest moments, survival was possible.